Hello, everyone, and welcome back to From the Stands. It is the college football game day show. It is week 4. Joining me again, I have Andy Hopper in Wisconsin in Cowland here, and Tom joining me again, our resident Notre Dame fan. How's it going, guys?
It is going great. He said it. I'm in Cowland. I am visiting my brother up in Wisconsin. He has a farm in the middle of bumfuck nowhere. We are like northern Wisconsin. I'm about an hour and a half from Minneapolis, St. Paul border. Yeah, it is. There's cows. There's a lot of shit. Well, actually, not really a lot of shit. It's just a lot of land, a lot of trees, some animals, some plants, and me. I'm here at this Airbnb. It's got a bidet. It's kind of changed my life. I'm a changed man. Had to use that. Before we got on here, after the show, I'm about to go take a cow for a walk. That is a real statement, and shoot a gun. So super excited about it. Up here in Wisconsin, but I couldn't miss the show because I'm a grinder, guys. I love this show, and I love college football. So Wisconsin be damned. I'm still here on this Airbnb Wi-Fi that I hope doesn't cut out in the middle of the show. So I'm happy to be here. Excited for another week of great football. Yeah, thanks for having me.
Of course. And that sounds like a very Wisconsin scene you got that you
Uh,
just gave to us there. So,
yeah, all I'm missing is cheese and I guess beer. Well, no, I got the beer.
got the beer. All right.
I will say quickly. I think almost all of my meals, besides maybe one or two, have been animals that my brother has has killed, which has been a trip to kind of think about that while I'm eating it. But it's been pretty good so far. I tried venison for the first time, pretty decent, and got to get over the fact that you're eating deer and not not think about it. But it was pretty good. It was pretty good. So, Tom, your turn.
Well, that's a tough act to follow. I'll say that. Thanks for having me, guys.
There's a
Week
fly in here.
four,
I'm sorry.
week four. Notre Dame is actually going up against Wisconsin this week. I know that's one of our shots um, in a later segment today, but looking forward to this. A lot of good college football. Week 3 was an awesome slate. Saw some late games. Got to work that Bama Florida game. That was just insane. Really excited for the show today, and can't wait to get started.
All right. And we will get started with the weekly recap here. Week 3 had some interesting games. I have a feeling, at least towards the top of everyone's list here, we'll have a certain SEC matchup. But what caught your eye, Andy, from week 3?
Well, I'm going to start and talk about my team that you can see on my chest here because I went to the game on Friday night and it was an absolute embarrassment to this program that we can't pick up 1 yard. 4th and 1 in plus territory, up 17-10. You need 1 yard to ice the game. Brett Bielema doesn't have one play to get 1 yard, Brett? 1 yard at home? At home! Up 7. It's ridiculous. You try this cute shit and bring up the punter to try to draw him off sides. It's ridiculous. Absolutely ridiculous that Illinois lost this game at home. I know you were thinking they're not good. I know that. But if you are the way they got every fucking break in that game. Maryland was not playing a good game. We scored a touchdown on one of our own fumbles. That never happens to Illinois. That never happens. But it's just, I know it's that's game 3 of the Brett Bielema era, and I'm not out on him, but that coaching staff needs to be fucking embarrassed. Tony Peterson, the offensive coordinator, needs to step the fuck up. This defense is only allowing 10 points through when there's 5 minutes left in the game, and you can't rely on your offense. You don't trust your offense to get you 1 yard? Chicken shit football. Chicken shit football. That was my first takeaway. Second takeaway is Alabama's in trouble. Florida is a lot better than we gave them credit for. I know we talked a lot about Anthony Richardson. He didn't play. Once Emory Jones kind of figured out, hey, maybe I should start using my legs too, that second half went a lot better for Florida. I don't think there is a clear – well, I think Alabama still is clear number 1, but I think it's a lot closer than it has been in recent years. There's a team in Athens, Georgia, boys, that I think is going to have something to say about not only the SEC, but maybe the national championship this year, if JT Daniels can stay healthy. Trying to think of what else. Sorry, I got so hot there about Illinois. I kind of
Yeah,
forgot what other games I wanted to talk
seemed
about.
like
But
you think Illinois maybe should have got a yard.
we should have got 1 yard. You'd like to think we could get 1 fucking yard in plus territory. 5 minutes left in the game, but that was a great crowd too on a Friday night. Shout out to the student section. They brought they had glow sticks. They connected them all together. They had a glow stick snake that was just incredible. Just incredible. Tom, I'm going to let you take over with a more level head and tell us about some other games that are more important than Illinois, Maryland on Friday night.
Week 3 takeaways for me. Obviously, the Bama-Florida game is one that goes, very high on the radar. Bama was up 21-3 at the end of the first half. Bryce Young had 3 touchdown passes in this game. I thought he looked solid. Emory Jones did not throw a touchdown. I still think their quarterback situation is a mess. Florida outrushed Alabama 245-91, so that is a sign of concern. Oklahoma barely holding on against unranked Nebraska. Spencer Rattler puts up mediocre numbers again. Marvin Mims only with 2 receptions. And then West Virginia takes down number 15 Virginia Tech. And I'm going to blame myself for this one because before every week, I put all my picks down for the shots and chasers on paper. I had West Virginia upsetting this one at home, and you guys both picked Virginia Tech. And I figured, you know what?
Up.
These guys are swaying me here, so I go ahead and I pick Virginia Tech. And Letty Brown decides to have a game. 80-yard run, West Virginia defense, 6 sacks. Tough pill to swallow, boys.
Yeah, I won't apologize for that one.
I'm not gonna. I will never apologize for.
Don't.
I do have one more game that I just remembered.
Yep.
Fresno State on the road at UCLA on the back of Jake Haener, 40-37. A game on the Pac-12 network that was being played while most of America was asleep. Even if they were awake, it was on a network that probably 12 people have. So nobody would have been able to see it anyways. But if you were up following it, Jake Haener played the game of his life on like 2 bad hips.
He's good.
455 yards, 2 touchdowns. He throws the game winner and like immediately collapses. Like he's just willed the Bulldogs to an upset over number 13 UCLA. God damn it. This win was over the highest ranked team they've ever beaten in program history. Shout out to the Fresno State Bulldogs. Anytime, any place, anywhere, we'll be there.
Yeah, that team is for real. I've heard, loosely some people have talked about them. I think everyone here, at least a little bit, liked this UCLA team. That Chip Kelly offense was getting things going, but man, that Fresno State team could be trouble.
That Fresno State, I got them in game. They were up 3 and they were still plus 12. That was literally taking money.
You locked that in?
Locked it in. Oh baby, I should have put my entire bank account on it. I'm regretting not, but I will take the winnings that I did get from it. I knew they were going to cover. They went to Eugene and gave Oregon all they could handle. The Bulldogs are a force to be reckoned with as one of the G5 teams.
Yeah, that plus 12 is someone in Vegas is getting fired over that one. Just very quickly, I'll go over mine. Obviously, Alabama, Florida, like you said, Tom. Alabama struggled a little bit. Florida is for real. The pivotal thing to me, I was laughing going into halftime.
The 2-point conversion. What at the end of the game? Why did he hold that ball like that? Somebody tell me why he didn't just give the ball to the running back. I think they would have got it in. That fucked me on the over. That absolutely fucked me on the over.
What do we have? 60 points. What was the over? 61.
The over was 60. The over was 60.
Okay.
So it was a push, but it was like, dude, you need 1 point.
Yeah. I don't know. For me, I was laughing going into halftime. They were booing Emory Jones in the swamp, and I think in his mind he's like, "Fuck, this cannot be my legacy. I'm gonna get replaced by A-Rich, who everyone loves. I'm getting booed in the swamp on national TV against number 1." Second half, completely different player. Defense stepped up for Florida. That was a great game. Awesome second half. That Florida team is for real. Alabama still, I think, is probably going to run their schedule, so I don't know. Florida's got to beat Georgia, I guess, is the...
Mm-hmm. It comes down to Florida, Georgia, I think.
Yeah.
For that. And I think it's going to be Georgia. I think Georgia's better. I think defensively they are will be able to match up with Florida pretty well. But I mean, credit to the Gators. And I honestly something that we haven't really talked about on this show yet through the first 3 weeks is these home crowds being back is really helping these
Oh
home
yeah,
dogs. Like, oh yeah, it has been. I mean, we saw the whiteout at Penn State. I know that swayed your bet last week, Brian. I
which
mean,
hit.
this anytime you go to the swamp, it is a tough place to play. And just seeing these crowds back has been absolutely electric. There's nothing like college football crowds, especially when it's for an actual good team. And I definitely think we've seen some of these large crowds help these, especially these home underdogs that have been pulling off. I mean, some upsets and some, covering the spread. Good teams win, great teams cover, boys.
Yep. And then lastly, just Oklahoma here struggling again against Nebraska this time, only a 23-16 win. Excuse me. That's their second out of 3 games this season that they've struggled. Obviously, they had that
Mm-hmm.
40-35 win over Tulane, which everyone I think eyes were on that. At least going into the second half, I think people switched their TVs to that, hoping for an upset. Oklahoma drops in the rankings from 3 to 4. So I do. I know I've bitched about preseason rankings multiple times before, but I am appreciating. I think the college football committee, the way that they rank teams, they're a little bit snooty about it. If you have a bad performance, they'll drop you. And I think that has now crossed over into the coaches poll and the AP poll. They see these teams not have a great performance, even though they're still undefeated. Sorry, you're going down. And then lastly, the home team for me, UCF, falling to Louisville. Terrible loss. You hate to see it, but what a good game. Anyone that watched that was our Friday night game. Um, yeah, that was just an absolute barn burner. If you like good football, UCF on a Friday night is always a good watch. We back to back literally back to back interceptions, and then Louisville took theirs for a pick six, and that kind of clinched the game. So it
your
happens.
messages your messages to us were pretty great. It was like,
I should have
oh
screenshotted those.
it was like, holy shit, and then it was like, oh fuck. Like literally within 5 minutes of each other. Our feelings on Friday night about our teams were probably the same. Just what the fuck just happened, Brian? I have a question for both of you. I'm going to start with Tom. Is it time to be worried about Spencer Rattler?
As far as NFL draft stock,
I mean, just in general, he does not look that great. His
As a
team is
QB.
uh,
I wouldn't say it's time to be worried. I think it's time to be cautiously optimistic with him, right? He has the talent, but right now I think the team is still getting their feet wet. And obviously, last year he played much better. This season, the competition level has definitely increased. You mentioned the home crowds being back. Spencer Rattler's going to have to kick it into gear by midseason. Otherwise, Cincinnati doesn't have a shot.
Well, a lot of these things that we've been talking about transition into our next segment, oddly enough, and that is Parity Party. We have all these top teams not doing so well, at least comparatively to previous years. There's no really runaway favorites. I know, Andy, you said Alabama is probably still top dog here, but probably not.
I mean, I'd be hard pressed to put anybody over them just
Yeah,
because they probably have the best signature win so far.
right,
Right. Like Georgia, they haven't, everybody they've played, they've looked really good, but they haven't beat anybody I think as impressive as Florida has been so far, if that makes sense.
right.
Uh, I mean, you look at what Penn State did on the road against Wisconsin, that's pretty impressive, but I'm not putting Penn State in the same breath as Alabama. I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
So the question then lies: we have all these favorites losing, all these blue chip, top four, top recruiting programs, struggling a little bit here. Is this going to be the season that has the most parity, at least in recent years, in the college football playoff era? What are you guys' thoughts on that? Because to me, my quick answer is yes here. Tom, do you agree?
Yes, but I'm going to disagree slightly about Alabama. I think Bama is still Bama. They have a younger quarterback who's still kind of adjusting to the scheme. New running back as well. We mentioned their running game has looked a little pedestrian. but the margin of victory among these top teams is definitely alarming. Two teams who weren't in it last year, Georgia and Iowa. Iowa, who I told you guys with Kirk Ferentz, they're a top 5 team all of a sudden. Penn State has been coming on. Don't sleep on Notre Dame. Andy, you have a retort.
I'm not sold on Iowa.
All
Their
right.
defense is incredible, but Petrus is. I still think he sucks. I still think Petrus sucks. I love Tyler Goodson's a great back, but I don't think their quarterback is good enough for them to. They're going to falter somewhere. Defense has been incredible so far,
Well,
but
here's a
I think.
question
Well,
then. Sorry to interrupt you, Tom, but that is a very Iowa setup. Strong as hell defense, good O line, but an offense that can't really produce. Is this, if this is a scenario where we do have, like, an almost absolute parity here, is that the best chance for a team like Iowa to make that jump up? Because, I mean, to me, you've got teams like, say, Oklahoma, say you get a 2-3 down the line of Oklahoma versus Iowa. Oklahoma, like you said, is it time to be worried about Rattler? They're struggling a little bit. Oklahoma has depth, but they're still struggling. Is that doesn't a team like Iowa get a chance this year because of what's going on with teams like that?
That's a good point, but I mean, he had 105 yards, or like 104 yards, in that win over Iowa State. Iowa State gave them that game with like 4 turnovers. Like
yeah.
I don't know. I just
Well,
think down the year with this tough Big Ten slate, one of these Big Ten defenses is gonna get to him. They're gonna. I don't know, but I mean, credit to what the Hawkeyes have done so far. Their defense has been one of the best in the country. I still put Georgia's my number 1 defense, but Iowa has been very impressive on that side of the ball.
yeah. I mean, just stating facts, they are a top 5 team. Clemson and Ohio State are 9-10 right now. And then how is West Virginia unranked, but UCLA
Yeah.
is? That's besides me. I think West Virginia should be in that 24 spot, especially if they're going on the road, beating Virginia Tech in a hostile environment. The Mountaineers are going to continue to haunt me this season, and they should be a ranked team right now.
I'm telling
Tom's
you,
never gonna forget. Never gonna forget.
preseason rankings will kill some teams just by nature of not being ranked
I
in
I
that
don't think
week zero.
Clemson's that good either. If we're talking about teams that are still ranked, I struggling with a Georgia Tech team that lost to Northern Illinois. Shout out to the Huskies, but uh, I'm not sold on Clemson this year. Tom, I know you talked about Skalski being back and a bunch of guys, but I don't know.
Yeah, the only credit I'll give to Clemson is that game had that massive rain delay. I
That
think it was
did.
like an,
That's
an
true.
hour and a half. They're all just sitting in the locker room. That can, maybe not affect people, but at the very least, like, to go from playing to your legs just sitting around for 90 minutes, can be a little rough. So I'll give them a little bit of an off there. But yeah, I
Yeah.
mean, a lot of these teams just don't look solid enough to where you're like, that's a CFP
It's
team. That's a CFP team.
so it's like I've heard 2 things. I've heard people comparing it to like the '07 year where you had what the two loss champion, or like somebody told me 2017 might be a better comparison, specifically because of Bama, because you have like superstar level quarterback at Bama, kind of who's young,
Uh-huh.
still finding his footing, still kind of trying to figure it out. You have the defenses coming off like all these dudes getting drafted and no real legit replacements for them. Like Alabama got destroyed by the run against Florida. I don't know if that's like they say it all the time. Is that did we figure out the blueprint of how to beat Bama?
Right.
Is it just run the ball down their throats? But I mean, Clemson is replacing a quarterback again. Ohio State seems to be good, but not great. You know what I mean? I still think Ohio State's the best team in the Big Ten, but I don't think they're that. They're not the Ohio State that we're used to seeing, when they're really, really rolling. I mean, the SEC features, I think the SEC gets at least 2 teams in the playoffs this year. Like
Okay.
it's hard pressed for me to tell you there are 2 better teams in the country than Georgia and Alabama.
I agree.
I'm really high on Georgia this year, and I hate that I'm high on Georgia. My buddies Chris and Tate Long know exactly why I'm not high on that. I hate being high on Georgia, and also a dark horse team, the SEC, that's going to be really fun to watch. That already has been with a Heisman candidate is Ole Miss. Matt Corral, he has been
I
awesome. Their
really like
defense
them.
Their defense actually looks like a serviceable defense. I don't know. I think this year. I think you're right though. It is going to be the closest that we have had in quite a while. And I don't know, man. I love college football, and it has been an absolute joy to watch every Saturday, unless I am watching the team you see on my shirt.
Because I can't get a damn yard.
I can't get 1 yard. God damn it! We're allowing 400 yards and 5 touchdowns to fucking Virginia. God, whatever.
All right.
We're not talking about Illinois anymore. Let's move on. So I stop.
So if Andy's throwing out the dark horse of Ole Miss, Tom, are there any dark horses in your mind that might slip in there this year?
Well, outside of Notre Dame, because they continue to get disrespected by these lines. I think Texas A&M. I think the real test for them will be against Alabama. I know they haven't played much competition yet, but they have the best defense in the nation through 3 weeks. They haven't given up more than 10 points a game. So that's my team. I think they have two excellent running backs, and Isaiah Spiller and Devin Achane, who are both averaging over, I think, 6 yards per carry. So right then and there, a good run game and a good defense and a great head coach, Jimbo Fisher. To tell you something, look out. The Aggies are going to make some noise this year in the SEC.
If their starting quarterback is healthy.
True.
Is he
also
back?
True.
I think they said late October is expected. That was the ankle injury, I think. And I want to say they gave him 4 to 6 weeks. So
that's where I'm concerned, but I like Spiller a lot. Yeah. I think he could have gone to the league after last year. Mm-hmm. Or wait, is he a junior now? Maybe he wasn't old enough to go to the league. I don't know. I think he's going to be a good back in the NFL.
All right, well, my dark horse team, Tom's going to hate this one here because next week, this game will be on the slot, Cincinnati versus Notre Dame. Since you want some parity, you want a G5 team and the CFP, all these teams slipping up. What do you need? You need a big ranked win for a G5 team to get on the committee's list here on their good side. They're playing Notre Dame, who we've already discussed has been, as sort of like Oklahoma slipping up in some of these games that they should be dominating in. This is the shot. This is the shot, I think, for a G5 team. I talked about it week 1. This is the highest that a G5 team has started in the rankings. Cincinnati has a chance here for top 4, boys. I'm calling it now.
Remember
this moment next week when they lose.
Oh,
okay.
Tom, tell me if I'm right or wrong. You're losing to either Wisconsin or Cincinnati. I think you beat one of them and you lose the other one. No? Oh! God.
Tom is locking in a double win here.
Jack Cohn comes from Wisconsin. Brian Kelly comes from Cincinnati.
2 revenge games right there. Yeah. You do have that on your side. I like
Cincinnati.
I like Cincinnati a lot.
To the Cincinnati argument, this is going to be a very tough game for Notre Dame this week. We'll talk about it later. Coming off a hard week like this, they're going to be tired. Those lines for Wisconsin are very good. Those are the big beefy boys. Andy's up in Wisconsin country. We got the cheesy boys.
They're eating them cheese curds and moving those bales of hay, baby.
Yep. Those trenches are going to be an absolute fight this week. Cincinnati could be coming into a Notre Dame team that's very tired. Even if Notre Dame wins by, say, 20 points this week, those boys are going to be tired. They don't have an off week here. And something I will give, I'm going to talk about this a little bit more later, but something I will give to Notre Dame here, they have one of the toughest schedules in that 6 out of their next 7 opponents have a bye week before they play Notre Dame. So these teams have just been waiting. They're like, all right, this is going to be our toughest game of the season. We're going to take our bye week here. That's rough. 6 of the next 7 are coming off a rest week. So, I mean, not saying Notre Dame's going to drop a ton of games or anything, but, those teams definitely had that in their mind when they were, scheduling Notre Dame. So, at the very least, it's a rough go for Notre Dame here. I'm picking Cincinnati for next week. I'm locking it in here now. That game will definitely be on our shots and chasers for next week. Cincinnati, my dark horse team here. We're just
I
gonna.
predicted Cincinnati would go undefeated on the week 1 show. That includes that matchup with Notre Dame. Tom, I know you hate us right now.
Tom
You
doesn't
might not
like
want
it.
to talk to us after
Yeah,
the show.
Brian McGardle does not sound like a very Irish name right now.
I'm sorry.
No, that's going to be a
Disrespecting.
great game. That's going to be a great game. I
Yeah.
got a little worried about Cincinnati last week. They were at Indiana. I think it was like the biggest crowd in Bloomington and for a non-conference game, and I don't even know how many years. But they were able to, get the win, and they covered the spread. I don't know, but
Well,
Tom, credit the Irish for scheduling a tough schedule like this.
it
And
is
putting
very
themselves
tough.
through the gauntlet. Yeah. Credit them for that. I will. Yeah.
We'll
They're not a bad team. They're good. But I mean, it's hard for me not to love Cincinnati. I love Cincinnati in this game, and we are a week away. We should probably get on.
we'll lay off Tom here. We'll hold off the rest for next week when the game is actually here. We're gonna move into the NIL Dream Team here. There have been some absolutely amazing NIL signings so far this year. Some very interesting ones like Kool-Aid McKinstry from a DB from Alabama signing with, of course, Kool-Aid. I think we talked about that one earlier just because it's absolutely hilarious. We have Velveeta, the cheese company, the Cheese Boys, have signed Cade York, the kicker, to to a contract. And we have Arby's is now giving away 200 $500 NIL scholarships to D1 running backs here. All you have to do is be a running back in D1. And according to Arby's, all you have to do is tweet out with a video, "Tonight I'm getting Arby's." It's that simple. And they're gonna. I mean, it's very on the nose. Arby's running backs, but still kind of hilarious. That $500 times 200, that's nothing for them. So we're going to talk about our NIL dream teams here. Are there any players, teams, or coaches that you would like to see pair up with any businesses for an NIL sponsorship that just seems fitting? Tom, we'll start with you on this one.
Again, I don't know too much about this specific topic. I do know Kyron Williams signed with Arby's as well.
Yep.
Quincy McKinstry signed with Kool-Aid McKinstry, I guess you can call him now. I don't know. I mean, Special K for kickers, like that could be
Okay.
something. I mean, you mentioned Cade York before. Lucky Charm cereal for Notre Dame.
There you go.
I don't know. I mean, it's interesting. I would like to see. Yeah, I'd like to see some kickers make some noise. You don't really hear about them that much. I'd like to see them sign some deals. I mean, we're talking about all these running backs signing with Arby's, and that is very punny. So, yeah,
Okay.
I'm not so sure, but
So
I'm
you're
interested to hear what you guys
you're
think.
going for the kickers. All right.
Yeah.
Andy, you got any interesting ones for us?
They're dumb, but
They're
Anthony
all dumps.
Brown.
Arby's.
Yeah, Anthony Brown, quarterback. It's partner with UPS. What can Brown do for you, baby? I
like
think
it.
That's a natural one right there. Really, you could use that for anybody with the last name Brown. Grayson McCall, quarterback for Coastal Carolina. Like, I feel like any cell phone company like Verizon, just give me a McCall, baby. Everything has baby on the end of it for some reason, but yeah, I don't know. This was a tough one for me to like think off the top of my head, but maybe Brian Kelly could get in touch with like an executioner or somebody like that. They could have a nice
morgue, maybe.
Yeah, a morgue or something. That could be a nice little sponsorship. We're just piling it on Tom today. I'm so sorry. Do you have any good ones, Brian? I'm sure they're better than everything I just threw out there.
So one I would like to see is, I mean, maybe I'm not sure what the biggest brand is. I would assume here it's John Deere in the farming community. Get our boys in the trenches, some scholarships. The big uglies fighting the fight. They can do something like Arby's. Best O-line of the week. Hit them up. $500 for that, for everyone on that O-line. Chewy, who the online pet supply company, who went famous because of the the old GameStop fiasco. Guy that moved to GameStop came from Chewy. I know a lot of people who use Chewy for their dogs. They need to hit up every dog mascot team in the nation, sponsor them. Get the dogs the money. You got Georgia, Mississippi
There you go,
State,
Tom.
Fresno State. And then the final one, I think if you are Kraft Cheeses, you are absolutely livid right now at Velveeta going after Cade York. You need to respond. This is a rivalry of epic proportions. Velveeta needs to hit up the University of Wisconsin, get the Cheesy Boys
I
more
got
money.
there is a craft factory in Champaign, Illinois, where the University of Illinois is. They need to be hitting up James McCourt or Blake Hayes right now.
Kraft,
Right
if you're
now, Blake
watching.
Hayes. But yeah, absolutely. I'm sure they're tuning on a weekly basis. Who's not? But no, Blake Hayes, best punter in the nation. I'll just say that right now.
And just briefly, I showed you guys a pic, so I need to show it to everyone here. Here is the Cade York Queso Grande sponsorship picture. I think I like him in LSU's uniform a little bit more than this awful cheesy uniform here. Yellow and
You don't
orange.
like orange and yellow together?
Yeah, looks a little awful. And just the quote from Velveeta, just like the Velveeta brand, Cade delivers when it matters most. So we've made the bold move of signing Cade to the creamiest deal of all time, the Queso contract. Very cheesy indeed, but not in probably the way that they were hoping for. But yeah, these have been really interesting to me to watch this unfold in year one. I think some of these companies just don't know what the hell to do with the money, but they want to get involved. They see another big company get involved. They're like, fuck, we need to make a move here. And now you got people like Cade York getting sponsorships from Velveeta cheese.
Have you heard this is not even starting for Ohio State. It's Quinn Ewers or whatever who graduated a year early
Yeah.
from high school so he could come be enroll early in Ohio State, and he's apparently already making like six figures. Like Bryce Young was like making seven figures or something like that already. But it is just incredible how much these dudes are about to start banking on, and good for them. This should have been happening a long time ago.
Yep.
Very long time ago.
Speaking of yours, he's also repping a mullet. You brought up McCall from Coastal Carolina. That's the mullet team. Are there any sponsors out there? Who do we got? Supercuts? We need someone to support the mullet boys.
Sports clips. Should
Oh,
hop
that's a
in
good
there.
one.
That's definitely a good one. I totally forgot about the mullet or shit. What?
Sports clip. That's a good one, I think.
I think
Or
sports
a
clips would
trimmer
be a good
company.
one.
I don't know who does the trimmers.
See, like when I think of mullets, I of course I think of beer, but it can like nothing with alcohol or gambling or any of that stuff can be involved.
Right.
But like, can you imagine if like they let the 21 plus athletes like get in with fucking like you're telling me the linemen at Iowa and Wisconsin don't love themselves some Busch Light? You're telling then I'm calling you a liar, sir.
I agree. All right, we're gonna leave that to the companies to sort out from here on out who they want to sponsor. Hopefully, we get some more
Just
fun
hire
ones.
us if you need some good ideas.
Yeah, there you go. We're gonna move into our shots and chasers, the games of the week. We just dogged Tom on Notre Dame for a little bit. We're gonna start with him here.
We gotta let you have the floor.
Yep.
Tell us why we're wrong, Tom. Go off, King.
Wisconsin versus Notre Dame. Who you got, Tom?
You guys are talking too much about cheese right now for my liking. Andy's in Wisconsin. This has this all set up. Jack Cohn facing his old school at Soldier Field, which is a neutral location, by the way. Notre Dame is undefeated all time at Soldier Field. Need I remind both of you? Thanks, Andy, for telling me that before the show. I think Jack Cohn takes the Irish down the field and they beat Wisconsin in dramatic fashion. Cohn has 8 touchdown passes in 3 games. And let's not act like we don't have the best tight end in all of college football in Mike Mayer, who has 3 touchdowns on the season. Kyron Williams, future NFL running back, 4 total touchdowns. He's been outstanding. He broke loose for an outstanding run. And we looked better against Purdue last week. Notre Dame is coming off a 2-possession win against Purdue, who, in my opinion, is their most credible opponent yet. Kyle Hamilton, 3 picks in 3 games. Isaiah Foxy, 3.5 sacks on the season. He is a dog up front in the trenches for Notre Dame. And JD Bertrand has been all over the place. A lot of people were concerned, well, who's going to come in? Who's going to replace JOK? JD Bertrand has been that guy right now. The biggest issue for me with this game is Notre Dame, throughout the course of the past 100 years, they've had outstanding offensive linemen. There's no answer at left tackle right now. Blake Fisher has been very inconsistent. Right tackle has not been much better for us. But what poises some optimism for me is that Wisconsin only has 3 sacks the entire season so far. And Graham Mertz has yet to throw a touchdown pass. So what leaves me to believe that this line is even fair? The biggest issue for me is Ches Malusi could be a problem in the backfield. 265 yards. Wisconsin does have a loss to Penn State already, but I'm picking Notre Dame due to the fact that it's at Soldier Field, very historic site for Notre Dame, which I think could essentially just be a home game for them to begin with. And I think Jack Cohn, this is a revenge game. Show the Badgers what you got. You know, you're a fifth year senior now. Go all out, go Irish, win by 3.
Tom, I think you probably were hating us a little bit for, the talk earlier,
Probably the
but I'm
majority
going
of the
Notre Dame
show.
here. So I think you'll like that. I think, I mean, you covered pretty much most of the stuff as you should have as the resident Notre Dame fan here. I agree. Cohn is the better of the two quarterbacks. The way that situation shook out, Notre Dame got the better end of that deal. If Mertz
You want to
leaves,
know why Graham Mertz is the starting quarterback? Because of this fucking team right here. Couldn't stop him, made him look like an absolute god. I don't think he fucking had an incomplete pass until like the fourth quarter in that game.
there you,
Apologies for the. I just every time I think of Graham Mertz, it's those are the highlights you see of him just torching Illinois last year.
yeah, that has not worked out well for them this season. I think it's fair to say.
No.
But yeah, I mean, at Soldier Field, very very big venue, and obviously the fact that it is a neutral site, which I mean, we'll call it wasting a home game for Wisconsin since they're technically the home team on paper here. But yeah, we talked about the line earlier. -6.5 for Wisconsin. That's an absolute travesty. If you're watching this game, throw your money on that +6.5 for Notre Dame. That's just free points, free money. I feel like that's going on my big parlay for this weekend. So I'm taking Notre Dame, and I'm also loving the points. Andy?
So I'm taking Notre Dame +6.5 because that is too many points for this game. Tom mentioned it earlier. The Irish are 10-0-2 all time at Soldier Field. Their last meeting with Wisconsin was way back in, I think, 1964 or something like that. So it's been quite a while since these two teams have met up. Notre Dame is 22-13 against the spread as an underdog in the Brian Kelly area. Give me that all day. Paul Christ, Wisconsin teams are 10-16 against the spread against ranked opponents. So if you are a betting person, take the Irish +6.5. I'm taking the Badgers to win the game.
All right.
I think Jack Cohn is the better quarterback. 828 yards and 8 touchdowns on the year. We saw him one of the most football guy moves of all time. He had his finger pop back into place by a coach. Very next play throws the game-winning touchdown pass. Shout out to you for that. I think Malusi is going to be a problem for the Irish defense. I really like what he's been able to do on the ground this year. But here's the question. We saw in week 1 a loss that you mentioned, Tom, to Penn State. Graham Mertz struggled, and that was because Jaquan Brisker, a very elite safety for the Nittany Lions. The Irish have an elite safety of their own, and his name is Kyle Hamilton. He is going to be all over the field. Graham Mertz needs to keep the ball away from Hamilton at all costs. We saw Brisker get that game-sealing interception in the fourth quarter on the goal line. Mertz isn't going to be able to make those kind of mistakes in this game if Wisconsin wants to win. I'm going to tell you why I think Wisconsin's going to win, and I think it comes down to defense. This is going to be the best defense Notre Dame has faced all year, and I don't think it's close. Yes, Purdue is middle-of-the-road Big Ten team, pretty solid. I really like Kenny Bell on the outside for them. But I think Jim Leonard is an outstanding defensive coordinator. I don't love the problems at left tackle that the Irish have had. You did mention only 3 sacks for Wisconsin, but also Jack Cohn was a player that was in the Wisconsin program for a few years. Somebody that Jim Leonard and this defense has lined up against in practice before. I think he's going to know most of Cohn's tendencies and what he likes to do. I don't love that aspect of it for the Irish. This is going to be the game of the weekend. I think it's going to be won by a field goal or something at the end. It's going to be a classic Midwestern football game, like a 13-10 score, 17-10 maybe. Not 17-10 because that means the Irish don't cover. The Irish cover the 6.5. Wisconsin wins the game. I'm going to be the bad boy and go against you two in this. Also, I'm in the state of Wisconsin. Hard for me to pick against the Badgers. This was supposed to be played last year at Lambeau Field in Green Bay. Due to COVID, nix that. Now it's in Soldier Field. They're actually playing at Lambeau Field, I think, in 2026. So got to love those future schedule games that they announce so many years before. Get your tickets now,
Oh, I'll
folks.
be attending that.
Are you actually?
Yeah.
All right, though, I'm going with you. Let's go. 2026. I'm there, Tom.
All right, and then moving into our chaser for the noon slot, we have Texas versus Texas Tech here. Texas, not back technically. They've already got a loss this season. Taking on the Red Raiders. Led by Tyler Shuck, the transfer from Oregon. Andy, we'll start with you on this one. Which Texas team you got here?
I don't know. Texas Tech has looked all right, 3-0. I'm not impressed with Texas. You still have that. You still have the quarterback controversy. Is it Thompson? Is it Hudson Card? What do you make of there? I mean, obviously, I've got the soft spot in my heart for Shuck, coming from Oregon, and he's actually looked really good for the Red Raiders so far this year. I don't know, dude. It's hard for me to pick against Texas in this game just because it's in Austin. Texas Tech has to travel there. I know historically they haven't done as well against the Longhorns as they might have liked. I think Stark and the Longhorns get a big win, but I think it's a close one. I think it's a close one this weekend. So I'm going to take Texas. I know that wasn't a very good explanation, but yeah, I'm taking the Longhorns.
All right, Tom, who you got?
So, as we alluded to last week and predicted, Casey Thompson was the guy on Saturday against Rice. And I like their running back, Bijan Robinson, 5 touchdowns on the year. DeMarvion Overshone and Luke Brockermeyer are good leaders on this defense. Not to mention, this Longhorns offense, they're the best in the Big 12 at converting third downs. I like Tyler Show for the Red Raiders, but he hasn't shown me enough to tell me that he's going to go in on the road and take this one away. They do have a great running back in Taj Brooks, 4 touchdowns already. And Eric Ezukanma averages 22 yards a catch. The Raiders have explosiveness on their offense. They can break loose for a big play or two. But here's what it comes down to. Will the Red Raiders defense be able to hold things up? The only chance they have on Saturday is if Red Raiders linebacker Colin Schooler, one of the captains on this defense, takes the Longhorns to school. And I don't think that's going to happen. So I think Texas wins this game. The spread, that's an interesting line, 7.5. I don't know if I take that, but I like Texas in this game.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, this is one of those games where I love to see Texas Tech win, just because Texas fans, A, would hate it, and B, I love watching that Texas Tech offense. Anytime that they've got a decent quarterback, which I think they do right now, that offense shows out. But I think Texas is still a little too good here if they stick with Thompson. The Rice game was very weird. I think we all went with Casey Thompson as last week as who we think should be starting. He only got to throw the ball 18 times last week because it was a blowout against, a pretty weak Rice team. So we didn't get to see much of him yet. So it'll be interesting to see what they do. I hope they stick with him because I'm going Texas here, so I want to see them win. I am, though, like you said, the line is a little weird here at 7.5. I think that's probably too little, but I do love the over-under at only 61. This game probably flies in the face of that and it hits, mid-70s, I think. I think we'll see probably like a 42-38 game here, and it comes down to like a last possession. But I still think Texas takes the game here. They're just too powerful. Robinson is just gonna eat up Texas Tech on the ground, I think. So I'm going Texas as well. Moving into 3:30, we have our shot, which is Arkansas, the Hogs, taking on Texas A&M. Texas A&M ranked, I believe, 7th right now. Arkansas ranked number 16. Their best ranking in a while, at least from my memory. Hogs are doing pretty good this year. They got the win against Texas. Tom, who you got in this game?
They are doing pretty well, and KJ Jefferson has only been sacked twice all year, so that is to pose some sign of concern for A&M. But Zach Calzada, look, I don't care who's a quarterback. This game is basically a warm up for them in 2 weeks when they go up against Alabama. Texas A&M, I mentioned, best scoring defense in the nation earlier in the show, and they have two outstanding running backs to lean on, and Isaiah Spiller and Devin Achane, both averaging over 6 yards a clip. So, what signs point to me that Arkansas can pull off this upset? I'm not so sure, but probably the coolest name in all of college football, Bumper Pool,
Yep.
leads their defense with 30 tackles. But give me Texas A&M on the road, improving to 4-0 on the season.
All right, Andy.
I got one word for you guys, and that is yes, sir. Sam Pittman and the Arkansas Razorbacks are going to march into Jerry's World and take out the Texas A&M Aggies. Mark my words. The Aggies have not played an offense as explosive as the Razorbacks yet this year. They're putting up 41 points per game. KJ Jefferson can throw. He can run. He's a dual threat quarterback. What I don't love about this game, since Texas A&M joined the SEC in 2012, the Aggies have won all 9 head-to-head meetings with the Razorbacks. That includes 6 victories at AT&T Stadium, at Jerry World, where this is being played. The Aggies are 28-1 straight up and 19-10 against the spread as favorites under Fisher. That all changes. Sam Pittman has this Arkansas Razorback team rolling. Jerry is going to pull some strings. He's an Arkansas alum. It's at Jerry World. We're going to get some windows open. We're going to get some glare on the quarterback's eyes. Calzada is fucked. No, I'm just kidding. I don't know. I like the Razorbacks, though. I like the upset. I really, really like the program that Pittman is building down there. You know, he's a former offensive line coach. They're like the biggest football guys of all time. You know how much we have to love football? Just be in the trenches with those big hog mollies, Brian. But no, I think Jefferson's going to be the difference in this game. I love what he's been able to do at quarterback. 632 yards so far, 4 touchdowns. Does have 2 interceptions on the year, which I don't love. They're going to have to take care of the ball against this Texas A&M defense. Tom said it. Best scoring defense in the country. They're going to try to be forcing turnovers. They're going to be trying to pick up this Aggie offense and giving them as much momentum with Calzada under center. You know, he 275 passing yards, 3 touchdowns, and an interception against New Mexico State. Not super impressed by a win over New Mexico State. I'm sorry. I'm taking the Razorbacks for an upset win at Jerry World.
Lock it in for me as well. I'm taking the Pit Boss and the Hogs here for the upset. Listen, Texas A&M, I think over the years, like ever since Jimbo's got there, I've been kind of rooting for the guy coming out of Florida, with his time at Florida State. But I just, like you said, Pittman is just such a football guy. This reminds me of Coach O's run with LSU. His first 2 years, like you can just tell that that's a football guy. Pittman is a football guy, and Calzada not impressive at all for Texas A&M. 37 for 72 throwing. He has the same touchdown to interception ratio as Jefferson, but that's just an awful completion percentage. I think this offense is not going to get going at all. We'll probably see a low-scoring game here with a lot of the attack done on the ground, and I do also give the slight edge through the air to Jefferson with Arkansas. So I'm taking Arkansas, which means you also get the points. 4.5 here. I think if this game stays low-scoring, that's just a must-take. Which you said, Texas A&M, best scoring defense in the nation. But they haven't really played anybody, so I'm not sure. Their defense is legit. I'm not going to discredit that. But they played New Mexico, which they've been good when? Never, I think. So And Kent State, another game they gave up 10 points there. Not a great team. So this is their first big test of the year. I love Jimbo. I love what Texas A&M is doing with the program. I just love Pittman, the pit boss, a little bit more right now. So
Hmm.
I like the upset here. I'm going Arkansas as well. And then moving into our chaser here for the 3:30 slot, we have Michigan taking on Rutgers. This is probably the first time we've ever had Rutgers. I'd have to go back and fact check that, but had Rutgers in the games of the week here. They're 3-0, boys. Tell your
Shout out
kids about a
Shiano.
tell your kids about a 3-0 Rutgers. First time since 2012. Is Rutgers back here, Andy?
Rutgers is so back. Greg Schiano is so back. Okay. Their wins are over Delaware, Syracuse, and Temple.
Not great, yeah.
Not necessarily a murderer's row. This is their first big test, but they're really good when it comes to the turnover margin. They're third in the nation in turnover margin and number one in giveaways. They haven't turned the ball over yet. Of course, they haven't played a defense, like Georgia, like Texas A&M, like, Ohio State. Well, Ohio State's defense hasn't been great that year, but you get what I'm trying to say. Um, they've yet to allow more than 261 pass yards. The pass defense is keeping everything in front of them. They're aggressive up front. The offensive line for Rutgers isn't great, but the attack they're using right now, it's worked. They are definitely going to be an uphill battle against the Wolverines, who they look like a pissed off Harbaugh team right now. They've looked pretty great. They've blown, I think, pretty much everybody out. They they haven't played any good defenses. That's been what people have been saying. Washington has been pretty damn good on the defensive side of the ball. Washington's offense has been really the problem for them. They played Western Michigan, they played Northern Illinois. Both of those teams each have wins over Power Five programs. So I like Michigan's schedule a little bit more here, believe it or not, and I do think I take the Wolverines at the Big House. As much as I think Rutgers is back, I think this just feels like a game where they're not quite there yet.
Yeah, as much as I would absolutely love to see Rutgers end Michigan season this early into the 2021 campaign, I don't think it happens. I'm going to root for them on Saturday
Mm-hmm.
here. I'm going to root for them for sure. Um, but yeah, I don't think they get it done. And notably, like you said, the defense for Rutgers has been pretty good. But a couple days ago, I don't know if you guys have caught this story. The two Rutgers players who were doing drive-bys with paintball guns have been suspended. One was a non-issue because he never played, but Max Melton, who has been one of the staples on Rutgers' defense, uh, was the other in the car with those paintball guns. He's been suspended. I think he had 2 interceptions already. He's got 2 deflected passes through 3 games, and he's like their fifth leading tackler. He's out of the game. So yeah, when you're a team like Rutgers, where it's slim pickings for good talent, you don't want to lose one of your best guys to a drive-by. That sounds terrible in the news. Looks terrible on paper when you're going into game day. So I think, as much as I don't want to say it, I'm taking Michigan here. The line is 20. I think I'll avoid that just because I can't root for Rutgers and, take Michigan here, minus 20, even though it'll probably happen. But we'll see. So yeah, I'm taking the Wolverines as well. Tom, who you got?
Well, we want to really dig into the nuts and bolts here. Why is Rutgers 3-0 outside of their schedule, right? How have they gotten to this point? Well, they're led by seniors, right? Their quarterback, Noah Vidral, completes 72% of his passes, no interceptions on the season. Bo Melton, senior wide receiver, has 20 catches for 227 yards and 2 scores. And this defense has 14 sacks in just 3 games. They're led by senior Olakunle Fatukasi out of Rockaway, New York, not too far from here. 3.5 sacks. But we have a future NFL quarterback for the Wolverines and Cade McNamara. I like him a lot. He's very poised in the pocket. Blake Corum has been electric at tailback for them. 407 yards, 7 touchdowns in 3 games. I mean, this guy's a freak. And then
Mm-hmm.
backup running back Hassan Haskins is pretty good too. He has 4. So McNamara hasn't had to throw the ball much because of what he has in the backfield. The Wolverines run the football. There's no player on this team that has more than 6 receptions through 3 games. Process that. No Wolverine has more than 6 receptions through 3 games. And by the way, I love Aiden Hutchinson. He is a 2022 first round pick, 3.5 sacks on the season. Give me the Wolverines in this game. They're going to beat Rutgers and hand them their first loss.
All right. Moving into 7:30. Sorry for any Rutgers fans out there, by the way. Got you excited, then we tricked you. Everyone taking the Wolverines here. Moving into 7:30, we have number 4 Oklahoma taking on West Virginia. This is in Norman, Oklahoma. Oklahoma has slipped in the rankings from 3 to 4 after a not so great performance versus Nebraska. West Virginia come off a big win. We'll give Tom half credit for almost picking them last week. But they take down number 15 Virginia Tech last week. It's a very good win for them. But they still have that loss to Maryland, who struggled a little bit against Illinois, I guess we can say. But, I still think Maryland is decent, but they've got the loss there. So who are we taking in this one, Tom?
Lightning won't strike twice, guys. They're on the road again at Oklahoma. Jarrett Doeg has 3 picks already this season. I love Letty Brown, as I mentioned. Sam James has been a viable receiver for them. But at the end of the day, it is Spencer Rattler. I do expect him to have somewhat of a better game. He's still completing 75% of his passes. But for me, it's this defense, right? Nick Benito, Parafron Winfrey, Isaiah Thomas are the 3 sack leaders for this Sooner squad defensively, and it's going to be too much for the Mountaineers to handle. They won't be able to climb the mountain and win this game. So give me the Sooners.
All right, Tom going with the Sooners. Andy, you got the Sooners as well?
I don't know. So last week's 23-point performance from the Sooners was their lowest total since the 2016 season opener since Houston. It's not the same offense we saw from last year. Rattler doesn't seem very concerned, though. I asked you if we thought we should be worried about him earlier. He doesn't seem to be very worried. He said, well, at the end of the day, we're 3-0. Like Tom has mentioned in our chat multiple times with the Irish, 3-0 is 3-0. Doesn't matter if it hasn't been pretty. Sure, everybody wants to be better, but they're still undefeated. Whatever they have been doing is working. Dogie, this is going to be like his 17th career start. He's got more experience than Rattler. This is an experienced West Virginia team who I have discounted, I think, early in the season. That win over West Virginia was very impressive. And we saw how Oklahoma has struggled at home this year. So I don't know if this is just an absolute give-me game for Oklahoma. I think the West Virginia Mountaineers keep it tough, but I think the Sooners do end up taking this one.
I really want to take West Virginia here.
I do too, but I just don't know. I just don't know.
I really want to take them, but I've already taken Arkansas for the upset over Texas A&M, so I don't know if I can do a double here. We've covered it time again. Rattler has been struggling. West Virginia looks pretty solid. West Virginia is like that team who is always pretty solid, but needs like that one marquee performance, and this could be it for them to really get them going. But I don't know. My biggest problem. Go ahead.
They're 0-8 against the Sooners since joining the Big 12. Most of those games have been blowouts.
Yeah,
they've only played them close like one time, and that was like 2012. So, I don't know. The history is not on the Mountaineers' side this time.
Yeah, there's too many players. My biggest problem with making this pick is, so early in the season, Lincoln Riley was talking about their depth, and we saw that in week 1, the Tulane game. They struggled in that game, but they were switching guys in and out so effortlessly, and they were able. Overall, the end score was pretty bad, but the game that they played was not terrible, and all these players that they were rotating in and out were able. They're like for like replacements. Like no one was markedly worse coming off the bench going into the game to replace the starter. And typically you look at that depth and you're like, all right, this team has the boys. They got the dudes, as Andy would say, to just
They have
constantly.
dudes.
Yeah, they got dudes. We're gonna rotate them, and we don't have to worry about anything. But they've been struggling with all those dudes. So is the fact that they have all these good players holding them back? Because is Lincoln Riley confused a little bit here of who should be getting that starting those starting spots? I'm not sure. Man, I really want to take West Virginia here, but I'm locking in Oklahoma. I think the Sooners. It's a home game in Norman. I think the fans will realize that West Virginia coming off of this big win against Virginia Tech, that this is a big game for the Sooners, despite West Virginia not being ranked. So not technically a ranked matchup here, but it's a good West Virginia team. I think the fans will show out. But on the other end, I think I'm going to take West Virginia plus 17. That's pretty huge, I think. That's a lot of points here. And yeah, I don't think I can ignore that one. So I'll go Oklahoma for the pick 'em. West Virginia probably going on my card with those points plus 17. And then moving into our last game of the week, the Chaser for 7:30. This game's actually a tiny bit earlier. Starting at 7 is the kickoff. We have the Gators taking on Tennessee. Gators will probably be a little bit tired here, coming off of that game against Alabama. They held pretty tough, but that was definitely a really tough matchup for them. Taking on the Vols under new coach and former UCF coach Josh Heupel, who I think many fans have turned on. They turned on him a little bit while he was still here. Tennessee fans, I think he's still up in the air for them. What are you thinking on this one, Tom?
Well, for good reason, they're turning on him. I think this defense. Look, this defense gave up 41 points to Pittsburgh. Theo Jackson is a solid player for them. He's been a good veteran presence. Hendon Hooker is going to have a lot of issues in the swamp. The big question for me, when is Anthony Richardson going to be the Gators' weekly starting quarterback? Is it going to be at some point this season? Is it going to be next year? I don't know. Emory Jones has 5 picks through 3 games. I'm not very impressed, despite the way he performed in the second half last week. Damian Pierce has been really solid on the ground for them, despite Richardson is their leading rusher. So we know we're going to see both players on the field. And then their best receiver is Jacob Copeland, who I really like. 7 catches for 200 yards. Are you kidding me? I mean, it just goes to show you the big play vertical threat that he has. And defensively, I love Zach Carter. They have solid linebackers, and they have 2 outstanding safeties. So give me the Gators. They're going to win. They're going to improve to 3-1. And yeah, I don't know. I wouldn't want to be a volunteer on Saturday.
Yeah, I agree here. I think Tennessee is probably in a little bit over their head here. Heupel's offense was exciting for a little bit as a UCF fan. I think Tennessee fans got their hopes up after week 1 this year. 38-6, it looks like, was the final score. But I think those hopes are going to be dashed soon. They're going to realize that he is not the greatest coach. He's a fun coach, but he's not a great coach. And you don't want a fun coach when you're going up against a team who just showed how good they are this past Saturday in the Florida Gators. I think the Gators probably are a little tired, so I don't think this is a massive blowout here. But it's back in Gainesville. The Swamp's going to be rocking. I think, if anything, that loss was maybe the best thing for this Florida team. Obviously, they would enjoy the win, but that fan base now knows that Emory Jones can produce. He might not still be the best quarterback for them, but at least they know he's not a terrible quarterback. Like, that was a great second half performance. Yes, it was only one half, but that was against Alabama. Alabama's probably the only team that I mean, Andy said it earlier. They're not like far and away the number one like they have been the past 4 years, but they are still. I don't think anyone would argue that they're outside of the top 2. Some people might want to throw Georgia up there. But yeah, for me, Emory Jones solidified that he's at least a decent option for them. That place is going to be very loud. They hate Tennessee there, which is weird because both teams have a very ugly-ass orange color in their logos. But I'm taking the Gators here. I think 14 maybe, two touchdowns I think is enough. Andy, who do you got for this one?
Andy muted.
Uh oh. Have we lost Andy?
I'm back. No, I'm here. I was muted. I'm sorry.
Thinking.
Somebody no, somebody was walking in front of me. I didn't want it to interrupt the audio. Sorry, just being a good co-host, whatever.
Appreciate it.
Excuse me. So Tennessee doesn't know what they want to do at quarterback. They have the Virginia Tech transfer Hooker, but they have the Michigan transfer Joe Milton. I mean, everybody saw Milton's struggles last year at Michigan. Hasn't necessarily looked that great through 3 weeks for Tennessee. Obviously, that's why they bring Hooker in. I've said it before. These teams got to know who the guy is. Who's the guy for Tennessee? Listen, it doesn't feel like 98 in Knoxville. I don't think they have a chance in hell in this game. I'm sorry. I mean, you have Evans has looked pretty good on the ground, 31 carries, but only 161 yards. 2 scores. You like that. Jones Jr. on the outside is their leading receiver, and he has 96 yards on the year. Not great. Their passing attack leaves something to be desired. If they are able to run the ball against this Florida defense, they have somewhat of a chance. But yeah, I like what you said, Brian. I like Florida by at least 2 scores. I think Jones has a bounce back game. Tries to move the ball with his feet like he did in the second half against Alabama last week.
Okay. And since Tom brought it up, when are we going to see A Rich? I guess I'll ask in general.
If he's healthy, if I don't think they're going to put him on the field if he's still dealing with the hamstring.
Mm-hmm.
Assuming he goes 100%, we all think Florida's going to win this game. So let's just say quickly they win. A Rich gets to 100% by the following week. Who are we starting? I think Tom, you've pretty much said A Rich still. You think?
Yeah, I mean, he's the more dynamic player. I think defenses fear him more. You can map out a game plan much easier for Emory Jones than Anthony Richardson. There's a lot of unknown about him. And not just saying that for short term purposes, but long term too. Richardson has such he's a dual threat. He's their leading rusher. Emory Jones is more of yeah, I know he runs the ball a little bit, but I view him as more of the pocket passer in that scheme at least. I don't necessarily think Jones is going to bring them to, the SEC championship game. I think it's going to fall on the legs of Anthony Richardson and the arm. I think that Georgia matchup is going to be key, and I think he should be starting by that point. But if you're Emory Jones, stay ready.
Yeah, that my issue as well is for the big games. I think Emory is good enough to probably get them through most of these games. I think Kentucky maybe a decently hard matchup. Then they got some easy ones. Vanderbilt, LSU's been struggling. Samford, Mizzou, FSU has been struggling. But that Georgia game is going to be massive. So I agree. I think they need to get him in sooner rather than later to get him up to speed for that Georgia game. Because like you said, if you're looking for a dynamic threat to throw off a defense like Georgia, Anthony Richardson is the pick 100 times out of 100 over Emory Jones for that game. Andy, I'm assuming A-Rich as well on your side?
I mean, I'd pick A-Rich, but if he beats Tennessee handily, it's going to be Jones.
Okay. Even going.
I think if he beats Tennessee, Dan Mullen is not going to take him out until he royally fucks something up or like looks super, super bad. He was nervous in the Bama game because of the hamstring with Richardson, and I think he is going to take it slow. There's still that NCAA rule if freshmen play less than 4 games or 4, I think it is 4 games, they can still take a red. Is he already a red shirt or is he a true freshman?
Richardson?
Is Richardson a red shirt?
Pretty sure he's a red shirt.
Okay, well then ignore whatever the fuck I just said.
Let me double check.
Doing
His bio on
quick
ESPN
on-air
just,
stat check. Looks like he's a true freshman.
No, he's a red shirt.
Okay, if he's already used his red shirt, then he's not going to worry about only playing in the 4 games. Like, conserve him another year. I don't know. I think Mullen is kind of in his own head about. I don't think he wants to worsen this hamstring injury and make it a problem going forward. I think he'd rather wait till Richardson is 100% healthy and then, kind of evaluate it from there. If it was me, I would have Richardson in, but I kind of agree. Like, I don't want to put the dude who's known for using his legs on a bad hamstring.
Well,
like
here's
in
the
the game.
thing. I mean, I'll throw this out there. I don't know if anyone knows the answer to this. So, Tom, you're correct that he did technically redshirt last year because he did get into a game though. Um, but do the 4 games still? Because this is very interesting. Last year
COVID
there was
year.
a COVID exception where you could exempt not because of redshirt, because of COVID. Everyone got a free year last year if you wanted it. So I believe that still applies, and he could redshirt this year.
Yeah, I don't think he could redshirt this. I think he's played too
Well,
much.
could he get a medical red shirt?
No, that's what last year was. Last year, because of COVID, everyone got a free medical red shirt. So this year, assuming he plays less than 4 games, he could redshirt, I believe, for this year. So that would be something.
Full galaxy brain right here.
Well, I'm glad you brought that up because I had completely forgotten about it.
I was thinking about that too right after I said it. If that
it did cross my mind,
could be his redshirt year, but
I didn't know.
Who knows?
I don't know. I'd love. I mean, I think all of America wants to see him out there. I think I talked about it on the last show. If you ignore the snap count, he's PFF's highest rated college quarterback in the nation, and he's averaging over 21 yards per touch every time he touched the ball. So it's hard to keep a guy like that off the field, but I'm always nervous about hamstring injuries and shit like that because it just feels like something that's once it's tweaked, it is just so easy to make it 2 times worse.
Yeah. Well, that'll definitely be something to watch here because if that COVID exemption does apply here, he's already played the 2 games against USF and FAU. If they want to save him, he could get some minutes before the Georgia game. Then they could play him as a sort of dual threat with Emory in Georgia, or just go full on him against Georgia and still be able to redshirt him. That would be very interesting. I'm sure there are people smarter than us out there who are.
Well, I'm sure there are
that are clicking all the boxes, doing all the research on this because maybe that's what Dan Mullen is doing. Maybe Dan Mullen has gone 4D chess on us. I don't know. I feel like that's doubtful. But anyways, we're going to wrap it up there. Those are our games of the week. Thanks again to Andy and Tom for joining me. Subscribe if you have not down below. It's on this side. Everything else down in the description, including Andy and Tom's links to their shows, to their social medias, will be down below. Thanks for joining us. Enjoy the games this weekend, and we'll see everybody next week.